So as y'all should already know, March Madness is almost over. That's right, this is your last chance to get our virtual training platform, Bradley On Demand, without a commitment. So, y'all know the rules. If you want it, you just text me, L.A. Williams, the Blind Master. Text me the 2 words, no commitment. My phone number, 267-551-6279. Now, mind you, you have to make this purchase before the end of March, right? Don't be thinking you're going to text me on Friday at 11:59, you know what I'm saying? Talking about some no commitment, because I'm going to be like, get out my face. No, I won't say that. But yeah, it won't be at the no commitment numbers. You're going to pay the full price. All right. So don't say I didn't warn you. All right. So today's podcast, we got a dealer principal by the name of Mike Schneider, and he is the DP of a Ford Chevy GMC store. Man, I'm telling you, he was dropping so many nuggets. I would have run out of sound effects if I had to play one of my cha-chings every time he dropped one. Wait till y'all hear this. This is fire.
M3.
Welcome to the Millionaire Car Salesman Podcast,
M3.
the #1 resource for automotive sales professionals, managers, and owners
M3.
to learn how to make money, accumulate wealth, and to all out ball out in the auto industry. And now your hosts, Sean V. Bradley and L.A. Williams.
1, 2, 3, 4,
M3.
Hey everybody, this is your boy Sean V. Bradley, the creator of the Millionaire Car Salesman Facebook group and the Millionaire Car Salesman Podcast, president of Dealer Synergy and all that stuff. And I'm here with a special guest, Mike Schneider. Mike is the dealer principal. Mike, tell us about your organization, where you're based at now. Let's start with where you're at now.
So the dealership I own now is Jim Taylor Motors. It's a Ford and then a Chevy GMC franchise as well in central Montana, outside of Great Falls, in a town called Fort Benton.
Okay. I want to say to our audience, I love when I get the opportunity to interview dealer principals, owners of car dealerships, because, man, I remember when I was selling cars, Mike, and I would look at my dealer principal. When I worked at Weissleiter Lincolnburg Mazda, his name was Taylor Weissleiter, and I looked at him almost like a god, not like a divine and not religious, but I was like, oh my God, this guy owns this dealership. It's millions of dollars, the facility, all these cars. And I remember one thing about Taylor Weissleiter, he used to every couple of weeks get another brand new car, but it was like he had this hustle that he would do. Because he was a DP, he would get dealer tags, so he would work a deal with like the Ferrari dealership, the Aston Martin dealership, just to drive these beautiful cars. But he had it where it was still a new car under the demo law. Yeah. And he would just he would drive these cars for free pretty much for like a couple weeks or a month, and then sell them and lose zero money and sometimes even make money. So my point was, I would look up to him. I'm like, man, wow, this guy is incredible. And there's so many people in our industry that look at dealer principals and owners of car dealerships. Like, that's like the epitome. Like, man, how can I get a dealership? So what's really interesting is your story. So if you can start with, how did you get into the industry and how old were you?
My dad either raised me right or really screwed me up. My dad was would do like restorations. He would do like high-end restoration, but he was a one-man shop. He'd do his own paint, mechanics, and everything. But he would do like 1 car a year, 2 cars a year. But it'd be like an old Jag or Corvettes and stuff. And so I kind of grew up in that. And then he ran a buy here, pay here lot, and I used to clean cars on his buy here, pay here, and get paid what I found in the cars. And the thing that put me on the path to owning a Ford dealership was we actually wholesaled. I never forget, I was like, I think 10 years old. We wholesaled a 88 Silica to a dealership. It's not around anymore, but in Spokane, Washington. And the guy was kind of a jerk to my dad. And I remember sitting there, and my dad was like everyone talks about used car dealers. My dad's like the most honorable guy, honest guy, like could not have been a more like just noble guy as far as a used car guy is concerned. But the guy was a jerk to my dad at the Ford store. And I remember thinking like, I'm going to own a Ford store someday. I don't know how it was either like a great thing or a horrible thing, but it was like a pit in my stomach for the next 30 years until I was able to accomplish it. And started buying some cars when I was 12. I sided a guy's house for him and built a fence across the street for my dad's buy here, pay here. He paid me $350. Bought a 71. My dad took something in trade. It was a 71, 3 on the tree, C100 Chevy, filthy, like toothbrush clean that thing, sold it, and kind of was hooked ever since. And then went to high school, played college football, when I was going to school, a lot of guys would go back, and I'm from Eastern Washington, so you go back home, and a lot of guys, like, the big job was like bucking bales of hay and stuff. My first summer, I dug ditches to stay in shape, made $10 an hour on the table, $15 an hour, and then brutal ditch digging is about as hard as it gets. And then the next summer, I went back, and I was like, I think I had, at the end of that first summer, I think I had like $2,500, like $3,000 saved up to go back to school, and then you live on your scholarship check the rest of the year. And then that next summer, I was just going to work for this dealership as a driver. I was like, I'm just going to drive for this dealership. And we were moving cars for an off-site sale. I'm like, hey, we need an extra salesman. You want to sell cars? And I was 19 years old, and that first weekend selling cars, I made, I think, $700 in cash spiffs, $3,800 that weekend in commissions. And my first month selling cars, I made $14,800, and ended that summer with about $40,000 in the bank, which you ruined me. I've never been into drugs or alcohol or anything like that, but there's no going back from that. You go back to school, and you're like, your roommate's like, I'm going to be a teacher, and I'm going to hope, I'm going to make $45,000. You're like, dude, I made that this summer, and like, you just can't go back from those numbers. And so then I just was hooked to the car business, and kind of took that athlete mentality, and coming from a car business background a little bit, my dad was a good athlete, and applied those basic techniques, and kind of figured out that selling cars is the purest form. It's the closest thing to playing sports that's not sports. It's applied technique. It's correct technique applied over time, overcoming adversity. And the more you put in, the more you get out. But it's not necessarily, it's a non-linear thing. It's not like an immediate feedback type thing, but you just keep improving and keep improving. And kind of got addicted to that. And then somewhere along my young career, somebody gave me the line that's like, I'm blessed with size. I'm a real tall guy, and I was a good athlete and stuff like that. But the guy goes, here's the thing is, like, in sports, you have to be tall, or you have to be fast or strong and all that stuff. The only thing separating you from the best salesperson in the world is the words you use and how you use them. And once you kind of have that understanding, it's like, all I have to do is just keep honing my technique, and there's really no limit that I can put to myself. And as I came through the business, ended up having different opportunities, was an F&I trainer, and worked in a bunch of different stores, and did store turnarounds for the corporate side of the business for a long time. Like I said, my dad was a hard worker. I don't come from tremendous wealth or anything like that. So knowing that I wanted to own a store, I knew I was going to have to kind of come in the back door and meet an owner and find an owner that doesn't have a succession plan, and do a good job, demonstrate that I could do it. And the next 20 years was able to kind of put myself in a position to do that through various things. But and it still holds true. I mean, if you're a really good salesperson, it's no different than a professional athlete. If you put the work in, you'll make as much as a professional athlete. Like say, you look at the guys, like you have that, I don't know if you ever read like Mamba Mentality by Kobe Bryant or anything like that. Yeah. If you just apply that, like just pure dogged work ethic to the car business, you don't have to be a really good athlete. It doesn't matter what race, gender, whatever you are, you can make pro athlete money with the same basic techniques or the same basic mindset if you just apply to the car business. And I just kind of steered into that. And 4 years ago, 5 years ago now, got the opportunity with, I didn't change the name of my store. It's got gentleman, Jim Taylor, tremendous human being, another total cowboy, Vietnam vet, came up selling cars. Great guy, just tremendous human being, gave me the opportunity. And, in this business, one of the lines everyone's probably heard it, but the way you get ahead in this business, if someone gets you an opportunity, exceed expectations. And was able to exceed expectations, and did a full buyout, completed it last year, where I'm sole dealer principal on both stores and the land and everything. So,
man, let's go back though, because you said something that I've been waiting to just kind of rehash. You mentioned your dad was a stand-up guy, because there's a negative perception of used car salesmen or used car dealers. What was your father's name?
Bob Schneider.
Okay, so shout out to Bob. So tell me, what principles did you learn from him? What did you learn from your father that helped you become successful? And just out of curiosity, do you still use some of the principles you learned from your father today in your job as a dealer principal?
Yeah, no, I mean, my dad's retired out now and lives in Florida and stuff. He was actually just up here the other day. But no, I still talk to my dad a couple of times a week. And the big thing is that I don't know where I heard this line. I'd like to take credit for it, but I highly doubt it's mine. But the thing is that your word is your word can't be negotiable. Like if you give someone your word, the second you put a price tag on your word is the second that your word kind of becomes worthless in my mind. Because then it's not a matter of being strong, or your word doesn't have any sort of bond to it. It just becomes a negotiation on when you'll break it. And my dad, like say, ran a buy here, pay here lot. Just a quick story. When I was helping him move, he moved to Florida. We were moving out, and this is like 20 years after he had his lot. We're moving some of his like these filing cabinets and stuff. He probably had 12 titles that the people never paid off the cars. And I was like, "You ever repo these things?" He's like, "Nah, they got close enough." I mean, he's like the nicest. Like I'm like, I would have been way more. I would have been repoing these things and pulling these cars. He was like, that lady she was a single mom. That guy was a good guy. I mean, he's like, they got close enough. I let him have the car. And, but I mean, that was a level of just like, he was just a genuinely kind guy. And, he did his own wrench work and stuff. If somebody brought a car back and he said something was correct on it and it ended up not being correct on it, or it ended up breaking after the fact, he stood by it and his reputation was everything. And that's something that, that's something I've carried with me. And actually just right before I got on this call, we're in a relatively small community, obviously Montana, and
right.
My dealership, we do a ton of charitable giving. We do a ton with the city. Like I just got done with a meeting with the mayor, where we're helping fix this walking bridge in our town. And, those basic principles is just like, look for ways your store can help give back. Look for ways your personal brand is your most important thing. And the thing is it starts with your word, and it extends from there. And then, and those are the things I took from my dad. And obviously like word tracks and how to, my dad's a sales guy. I mean, there's certain just things that you learn. Like,
let's talk about that for a second here. Like I would agree 1000% car sales is a relationship thing. If you get somebody to like you, trust you, and believe you, and they're in the market for a vehicle, they're going to buy from you. So your word should be your bond. And unfortunately, too many times people are wishy-washy, flippy, and they don't think like that. But as a dealer, you have to have more of a long-term strategy, where sometimes these salespeople, because they bounce from store to store, either they get blown out or they quit thinking the grass is greener. They don't realize that one of the most keys to success in automotive sales is building strong ties with the community. If you want people around you to buy from you, to refer to you, to service with you, then you need to deposit into their emotional bank account. You can't just keep extracting and taking. You've got to give and be part of the ecosystem of the community. Do you agree with that?
100%. And you actually said something that I got a gentleman I worked with gave me a really good piece of advice. And this is from a leadership standpoint. This is actually one of the only universal theories I've ever run across. You can never pull out more than you put in.
Yes.
From like, I can't go to an employee and expect them to sell a bunch of cars if we don't do advertising. If I don't train someone, it's impossible for me to demand that they're going to all of a sudden increase their performance. So it goes from a leadership standpoint, from a dealer standpoint to the community. I can't expect the community to support me if I'm not willing to support the community. And from a sales standpoint, it's the most basic thing. No one's walking on the line like, "Hey, let me get your credit." You got to invest in them. You lead with questions. What are you guys looking for? What are you hoping to accomplish? What's this next car going to do for you that your current car is not? You start investing with those questions, showing personal interest and stuff. And along the way, you start finding common ground and you invest in that customer. But yeah, if you don't invest, you can't walk up to a bank account with $2 in it and pull 20 grand out, and that's the way you got to treat humans as well. So,
man, I love this. And I want to dialogue and not spar, but volley with you, because I want our audience to hear this, because I think we are like-minded on a lot of these values and these philosophies. Let's go back to what you just said about you can't expect your salespeople to perform if you don't train. You can expect them to sell cars if you don't advertise. So I got a couple questions for you on a dealer perspective, because these questions I get from my audience all the time, and even some of my clients. Okay, why do you feel, and I'm not saying you, because I don't know anything about your store. I have not profiled you on purpose, so we can have a really authentic conversation. Why is it, and this is a sick number, like when I found this out, the automotive industry, forget about buy here, pay here's, forget about the used car independent market, just the franchise dealers in this country. There's over 16,500 franchise dealerships. The math is staggering. The franchise dealers combined spend over $1.2 to $1.5 billion a month on generating leads. Okay. Between marketing, advertising, like over $1 billion a month, our industry spends per month. But yet there's a fraction of that number, $1 billion, that dealers invest in properly training their staff and providing them with the right skills on how to handle these buyers, aka leads. Can you just talk? Why do you think some of these dealers are backwards with that? They're upside down with their philosophy?
Well, one of my observations, and like I said, before doing this, I did a lot of short turnarounds. That's
why I'm asking.
The dealer model is a weird model when you think of the promotion, like the chain of command and promotion. You take someone who's a really good car salesperson, and that means they're really good at talking to people, moving people's thinking and selling. And then you put them in a position where they are completely making their living by their own efforts. And then you put them in a leadership position where they make their living through the efforts of others. And I think one of the things that gets lost in that is you get a good car person, but that training skill is there's an actual training skill set there. And I think a lot of guys, and we, right, wrong, or different, a lot of car people have big egos. And when a lot of guys get promoted, a lot of people get promoted, they don't want to admit that they may not be the best trainer. They're a great salesperson. I remember my first job, I was a tremendous salesperson, great guy. I mean, did awesome young salesperson, tons of energy, did all that. My first promotion to the desk, I was the worst damn manager anyone's ever seen. I was like, hey, go say something like I would say. I mean, like, they're like, what the fuck? Like, what does that even mean? And I'd get frustrated. I'll go close this deal myself. I could go close the deal myself. And I felt like I was like, look at what a great salesperson I am. But that where I can take my skill set and actually make someone interested, or take it and apply it to a salesperson and put it in their world where this is how they can go apply it. That, because I don't think we want to address that at a management level. I think that's one of the biggest things is we kind of avoid that training. We kind of make the assumption it's like you're either sink or swim. And there's been a dynamic shift in the car business lately where, I mean, you go back a generation, I don't know how old you are, but I was kind of the end of the old school, beginning of the new school. I kind of saw that transition where like the guys that taught me were like, I mean, I remember my first job at a store, they go, you're going to sell 8 cars a month or whatever it was, or you're fired. I mean, that was basically it. It's like, figure it out. I talked to their salespeople. And it was like, okay, sink or swim. And I think you still have some of that mentality out there, whereas we don't have that investment level. But the other side of the coin, and just to go back real quick, as far as the investment thing, that applies to yourself personally. Like if you're in playing sports, that if you weigh 400 pounds, like you're not going to, and you get mad at yourself because you can't run a 4-minute mile. That's not really fair. You haven't done anything to invest in yourself. And from a salesperson, it's impossible to go, well, I'm going to go from an 8-car month person to a 20-car month person and not change anything I'm doing, not invest in anything myself, not get on, join a forum like the Millionaire Car Salesman thing and start actually investing in myself. Like I say, and that's where I go back to that pro sports mentality is you look at the guys, people who are tremendous pro sports athletes, they have that investment in themselves. They're hitting the gym earlier than the next person. They're doing all that stuff. Hey, they got great coaches. I mean, Kobe had a tremendous coaching staff, a tremendous team around him. He was still the first guy at the gym. He was still the last guy to leave the gym. He invested in himself. So when those crunch times happen, you have the confidence to pull the rabbit out of the hat. You have to be able to look at yourself in the mirror and go, okay, I deserve to make this sale. I put the work in, and there's no fakery to that. That's I think that's one of the biggest things is we're in a business where we talk and there's a lot of bravado and there's a lot of this, but you're never going to fake yourself out. And if you don't invest, if you don't have that internal confidence to turn a no into a yes, and you've not done the work to actually feel like you can make that happen, when that moment of a decision comes, or that times it comes to pull the trigger and make it happen, the customer is going to sense that. Whereas if you invest in yourself and you feel like very confident and you get to like, okay, I have this objection, I know how to handle this objection, and you go back there and you present with confidence, that to me is one of the biggest differences is from a management level, do we invest in ourselves to be good leaders? We could probably, that's one of the biggest things I used to go do is train the trainers. How do we train the managers to help the managers be better trainers and help them feel confident where they actually feel like they have the bullets in the gun to help somebody to help move numbers? And kind of a long-winded answer, but it's a trickle-down effect of if we don't give the managers the ability to feel like they can go train, that's never going to be the culture that goes, the fish rots from the head back. That'll never be the culture that gets down to the salespeople where they feel like they need to invest in themselves to be the best salespeople they can be.
Listen, 100%. Just to give you a little bit of my background, I've been in the automotive industry 23 years. I spent 5 years in the front line, sales manager, special finance manager, internet director, BDC director, and I used to average 33 units on the showroom floor at a Lincoln Mercury Mazda dealership. And I've owned Dealer Synergy for 19 years, 3,700 rooftops in 5 countries. I'm not stunting. I'm just saying. So just give you background. And what I found, which is really interesting, is that before the podcast, I think we've been doing this for about 4 years now, my business was solely, for the first 15 years of Dealer Synergy, was just dealerships and dealer groups. But when I started doing the Millionaire Car Salesman group and doing the podcast especially, we've got individuals more than ever that are coming to us and they're like, hey, listen, my dealers doesn't have training, or the training is old school or whatever. And we're getting a lot more individuals signing up for showroom training, branding training, et cetera. But what you said is so true on 2 different levels. Let's just go back to the first point that I've just for our audience is about the management. Just because you are a great athlete doesn't make you a great coach. Just because you're a great salesperson does not make you a great teacher. There's the whole art form in being able to articulate what you're doing. You have to also understand that people are different than you. You have people that have got kinesthetic mindset, visual mindset, auditory mindset, and hybrid mindset. So they learn differently. And if all you know how to do is do one thing, you're alienate the majority of your training audience. And so again, I want to say this to our audience, just because you're skilled as a salesperson, to Michael's point, doesn't mean you're skilled as a trainer or as a coach. Now, let's just use a football analogy here. I mean, when you look at I'm from the Philadelphia area. I'm based out of originally from New York, but we rep Eagles hard, not just because of last year. And if you
I know he's got a limp from jumping in that bandwagon. Actually, I'm sure.
Yeah, You look at the tape. Me and my wife are go hard. My wife is Puerto Rican and she's an Eagles fan, and she'll cut you if you say the wrong thing. I'm telling you right now. So the idea is that when you look at a football team, I mean, think about it. You have a head coach, you've got an offensive coordinator, you got a defensive coordinator. That's just on the football side of things. Then you have conditioning coaches, you've got weight trainers. And I'm going to tell you right now, 2 big Eagles, Trey Thomas in the Hall of Fame and Brandon Brooks, both used to train in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu at our academy at Balance Studios. So even though they're professional athletes in football, they're training in other things so it could enhance them. Then you've got financial coaches, you got business coaches, you got life coaches like Tim Grover. You talk about Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan. They did that. He wrote that book Relentless, and he was in that Michael Jordan movie about being. So my whole point is that a professional athlete can have 15 different coaches or managers or consultants, because there's different categories to enhance yourself. So sometimes salespeople and even dealerships don't understand that. Yeah, even if you had a showroom sales trainer, that's great. But what about internet sales, phone sales, CRM? What about marketing, advertising, branding, video, social media? It's like going to the gym, brother, and you working out your arms, and your arms are diesel, but you never work out your legs. You got Gumby chicken legs. I talk about it all the time. You know what I mean? That's kind of corny. You need to proportion yourself holistically. Do you agree?
Oh yeah, absolutely. No, I 100%. It's like for this from if you put it in a sports context like that, it has to be, like I said, it has to come from an understanding of. And one of the things I like to do is kind of boil back. You touched on it briefly, but boiling back like the basic understandings of what we're doing. Like sometimes I think in the sales we get bogged down so much with, I need to sell this car, but what are we actually trying to do? And this is where I've spent a lot of time trying to figure out, because I spent so much time in stores, and you see what works and what doesn't, and why people are successful versus why people are not successful and stuff like that. And you sounds like you did the same. There's just like, you can walk into a store and like doing a sales meeting or like doing a sales presentation or something like that. The 3 guys are paying attention or something. You're like, okay, those are your top guys on the board. And then you'll get done with after the meeting. And the guy that was on his phone half the time comes up. He's like, how do I sell 20 cars? He's like, well, pay attention to the damn meeting. It's first step. You know what I mean? But you to the management side of it, it's, if you boil back, like I said, sometimes I think we get caught in the minutia versus the larger kind of broad spectrum things. Like as far as like a salesperson going to a management thing, all that talent is totally applicable to being a manager, because what is sales really? It's getting someone to your way of thinking. And I don't know if you ever kind of dug into like the Simon Sinek or the science of why people do things and stuff. I kind of dug into that for quite a bit. Yeah. If you cross-section the human body off and could look at their chemical, their endorphin releases and stuff, the sales process and leadership from a physiological standpoint, the human body is identical. All we're doing is getting someone our way of thinking. So getting someone, if you're in a leadership position, getting someone to follow your lead as leader, follow your instructions as leader, is the exact same technique, essentially, is getting someone to your way of thinking when you're selling a car. Now, it's a different application of that. And that's where, like I said, having like a much broader kind of holistic approach versus, going just, hey, repeat this word track. It's like, well, why does the word track make sense? You know what I mean? And then it's like, okay, well, the word track actually activates these things in the human brain and da-da-da-da. And now how do I take that take that and apply it to my, as a leadership position? Now I'm going to apply it to my salespeople. I'm not trying to get them to buy a car, but I am trying to get them to buy into a culture, or I am trying to get them to buy into a way of doing a process or whatever that is. And again, like there's, to your point of, it takes a team of people sometimes to do that. And if you're trying to invest in yourself and do the apps, I'll back up. It is completely dependent on how successful you want to be in this business. Like for me, I was a really good salesperson, but I always had that SOB mentality. I was a student of the business. I was always looking for outside information to try and improve, try and sharpen the blade. Like say, looking at the science of why people buy, the biology of why people make decisions, all those things. Now, they weren't necessarily presented to me, but when they did get presented to me or someone came in and talked about it, I was all for that. A lot of stores don't bring that in, but a lot of people, it's kind of a two-sided coin. A lot of salespeople, they have to want it as well. From a dealer perspective, there's a cost to bringing all those people in. And if you have a 20%, I used to do sales meetings and stuff like that. I would get called, I'd get brought into these stores to do sales meetings. I would be happy if 25% of the people actually were highly engaged, you'd walk out if you had a room of, 25 guys and 5 guys at the end of it, you saw 5 guys or 7 guys taking notes, you'd consider that a success. You go, hey, that's not bad. So you have to, like say, it's how much you want to invest in yourself. And from a store perspective, if you take that mentality, it's how good do you want your store to be? And you keep applying that. It's like, okay, we have our dealer reps, we have this, but are we always looking at the next thing that we can always be kind of grabbing for and kind of improving? And yeah, there's not one-stop shop. If the second you stop trying to improve is the second, like say, it's the second you start dying. Like there's no neutral in this business. You're either moving forward or moving back. And I truly believe you have to just continue to look for answers all over the place. So
I agree. And I think that we've all heard or said this phrase, car sales is like owning your own business. I can't tell you how many times when I was on the front lines that my dealer or my GM would say, Sean, you don't understand how lucky you are. You're like a partner in this dealership, but you don't have to pay for insurance, staples, floor plan, all this other stuff. We got inventory to sell. And the salesperson makes the largest individual commission on an individual sale. And so a lot of times, because we're so far away from the sales floor, from the dealer principal and ownership, especially at a dealer group level, right? It almost seems like it's a bunch of bullshit or it's not real, but it is. But the problem with that equation is this. To me, that's like having a joint venture business, the dealership and that salesperson. The problem is that each of them have their responsibilities. Okay, yeah. Let me start, and I want you to correct me or add or modify.
You're on.
The dealer principal, their responsibility is to provide the resources for that salesperson to be successful, whether that's inventory, that's the CRM, it's the technology, it's the training, it's the environment, it's the opportunity. They're there to give all of that to the salesperson. That's on a global macro level. On a micro level, my opinion is the sales management team on a one-on-one basis needs to identify that individual. Now, the problem, here's where the first problem, or one of the first problems arise, is that if you do a shitty job in recruiting and staffing, if you've got the wrong people, or you have the people that are just luggage or what have you, if you keep them, shame on you. Because if you clear your floor and you've got people that are either good or the potential to be good, that's all I care about. You need to weed out the negativity, the cancerous people, and the lazy people, and the complacent people. But if you have the good people and even the potential to be good people, it's your job to individually identify their strengths, their weaknesses, their opportunities and threats, meaning challenges, and on an individual level, try to help them get to that next level. Now, that's the problem. That doesn't happen in most stores. Simultaneously, what also doesn't happen, unfortunately, is on the salesperson side. They hear this stuff. It's like my own business, but they don't take it seriously. Most salespeople do not act like real estate agents. Real estate agents know the second they get their license, they're on their own. They get kicked out of the nest, and they've got to market, advertise, brand, generate referrals, and be able to bring to the table. Because if they just waited for Remax or Century 21 leads, they're going to starve to death. Yeah. So I think that there's responsibility on both sides. Salespeople need to step up, and managers need to step up. What do you say as a dealer principal? Do you agree? Do you disagree? How do you also have this in your own dealership? How do you engage your people on both sides of the fence here?
Well, you're exactly right. You actually said something. I just brought a new person on who doesn't have any car sales experience, but has some sales experience. But and you said something that's exactly, and the way I explained it to her is very similar. It's no different than if you were able to have your own business and like at the mall, and they gave you a little booth at the mall or a little store at the mall. The only thing is the mall pays for all your inventory, covers your insurance, takes care of all your computers and everything. All you have to do is market your store at the mall, and the store is you. So it goes back to your personal brand. That to me is what's been, there's a big, that mentality. I don't know where it went. And I don't know if you've observed this, but like when I started selling cars, there was always the person in the store that was like the 25, 30 car a month guy that never took it up. It was like, yeah, exactly. They work their customer base. They followed up with their customers. They're sending letters. They're sending, coupons to the parts department to come in and get free hats, whatever it is, but they're treating it like a business of one. And all they have to do is they get a customer base and then everything else to support it. And it's their business. It's like, it's Mike Schneider's car sales. And I just happen to operate in this mall here. That, I don't know, like I say, that's one of the biggest things missing right now. And to instill that, that's the success in this business. And that's one of the things that I like to say. Once somebody, and again, there's certain things I've been in the business a long time. I don't, if I knew how to figure this out, I'd have a podcast. But I don't know where you can instill that. It's either born in people or whatever. Some people have it and some people don't. One of the biggest things I see from a management failure side in regards to what you said is when I was out doing trainings in stores, it would make me cringe tremendously is the manager goes, well, we have the 20 car a month guy and then we have the 5 or 6 car a month guy, but you need that 5 or 6 car a month guy. Because, those are guys, to me, the 5 car a month guy or the 6 car a month person, they're not bringing in 6 extra deals. They're costing you 5 to 10 extra deals because they're below the average. That means that they're just getting the easy rung people, and you're probably stealing from the top performers because they're taking ups from everybody that can sell cars, and they're basically burning the hard ups, getting the easy ones, and diluting the thing. So I always like to say, as far as getting your team correct, you don't want, and it's you have to love everyone and give everyone an opportunity to a certain extent. But there is that very pragmatic side of the business. You can't afford to have slag on the floor because they're not bringing you deals. They're costing everyone else that's a hard worker deals, and they're costing your store deals because they're taking potential sale ups and they're not getting the hard ones. So that's one of those things that, from a management standpoint, I see a big breakdown there. As far as like how to lead this, how to lead your store out of the things. But
Mike, you're a Ford dealer, right? You're a Ford dealer.
Ford,
right?
Chevy, and GMC, yeah.
Ford, Chevy, GMC, even better. Watch this. I got a question for you. Okay, so you're Ford, Chevy, GMC. You have 2 top tier brands, Ford and Chevrolet. Your Fords are the number 1 selling vehicle, F-150, for the last 45 straight years. Yeah. I got a question for you. Does Ford manufacture have road to the sale training certification? Yes or no?
It's similar. Yeah, they do.
Really? I've never seen it. Road to the sale. They have product knowledge certification, but they do not have the exact road to the sale certification that's mandatory for every individual Ford salesperson. They don't teach Ford people how to sell the cars. They teach them all about the products inside and out. Where does it go through the road to the sale? From the greeting to the qualifying, the needs assessment, to the features and benefits walk around. They can do that. But they don't have the negotiations.
No. Yeah, exactly.
So
yeah.
I'm
sorry, that in that sense. They also don't do a lot as far as follow-up training, which I find somewhat interesting.
Yes, pause. You're going ahead of me. So here's my point. The manufacturers are all multi-billion-dollar corporations. Ford OEM, GM OEM are multi-billion-dollar companies. What they give you is superb, impeccable product knowledge certification to understand the product, but they don't supply you on how to freaking sell the product. And so if the dealership doesn't provide the most up-to-date tactics from qualifying, NADA says the number one reason why people don't buy cars isn't price, isn't reputation, isn't drama. It's they're not qualified the right way. They're landed on the wrong car. So you see the debacle here is the OEMs don't do that. It is the responsibility of the dealership or the dealer group, theoretically, or it's the responsibility of the individual salesperson to magically think, hey, oh my God, I need to learn how to sell better or how to qualify better or how to your point, how to follow up internet leads better or phone ups better or be-backs better. So do you see what I'm saying? That's the conundrum right there. If the dealership doesn't provide it, then the OEM doesn't provide it, the dealership doesn't provide it, or they do a half-assed job doing it. It's either up to that salesperson through trial, error, or by luck, or by tenacity to be able to figure out that information. Do you see how that's a big gaping hole?
Yeah, and I think that comes down to dealership. That's a dealership culture thing in a lot of spaces. And I think that, the size dealership, I think that there's certain the model that they've gone to in some of these stores and some of these like larger corporate stores and stuff where they just turn people in, turn people out. That investment level of trying to, and again, I think this has been lost in the industry a little bit. And I'm fortunate in that we're in I'm not in a massive metro area and stuff like that. So we're fortunate that we kind of get some of those people that are a little more salty of the earth and they're looking at this as more of a career than a stepping stone stuff. But no, the dealership needs that comes from dealership culture where you need to invest in your employees to a point where they understand this is not just a stepping stone job. This is a career. And if you manage it correctly, it's one of the few careers that, I don't know if you've ever seen the Tony Robbins thing where it's like the effort money graph and your effort's up here and your money's down here. And then eventually your effort goes down, your money goes up. This is one of the few jobs without any sort of education you could get into that adheres to that model almost perfectly. I don't think that gets to explain to a lot of people where like you're going to start out and maybe you're not making the monstrous money, but you're in your efforts out here. But as your customer base grows, you start working your customer base, you're not taking as many floor ups and your money keeps going up like this. And eventually you're like you, where you show up, you get a couple calls, you're a 30 car a month person, you're never touching the floor and you're making massive money and your effort is way down here and your money's way up here. That I think starts from the dealership culture model, and you have to explain that to the people and you have to get buy-in. And that's where that management comes in, where that's one of the biggest things. And that's where I go back to what I said earlier is taking that sales skills and applying it from a managerial level where I'm not trying to sell my salespeople a car. What I am trying to do is get them to buy into an idea. I'm trying to get them to buy into a culture, buy into a belief system where this is the right way to do this. If we continue to do this over time, you will make the big money. And then, like I said, the proof's in the pudding. We have salespeople that are top earners for our area, but they've worked that model. And I think that a lot of dealerships, and I don't know the reason behind this. Like I have my own personal speculations, I guess, but we've kind of gone away from that where it's like you're just living off ups, versus creating your customer base and creating that business of one mentality. To me, the biggest thing is, like I said, that culture starts at the top. It has to be instilled in your employees. Your salespeople, and they have to believe that if they adopt that business of one model, they can be successful. And now, obviously, there's a lot of things that go into that. One of probably the biggest things that undermines that, just very basic thing from a management standpoint, is your pay plans. If your pay plans don't incentivize that mentality, it's really hard to get people to buy in. If it's the old whiffing, what's in it for me? If you can ask people to do anything they want to do, if they don't see a benefit for themselves personally, it's really, really hard to get buy-in. So you have to create the culture. You have to create the pay plan that would support that culture. And then you have to train and instill confidence in your employees to actually go execute that and giving correct expectations as far as it's not an overnight thing. This is going to, if you hire someone and they have potential, it's no different than a farm system on a baseball team or anything like that. It's investment over time and we're going to develop you up. But that, again, that comes from that. There's a symbiotic level of commitment there where it's like the dealership's going to commit to this, but the salesman needs to commit to this. And if we do this, there's no cap to what we can earn together. But like I said, there's not one can't exist without the other, I guess, if that makes sense. And the dealership, like I said, the dealership has the ability to put that platform out there We can create the environment to create that mentality. But it comes down to the individual salesperson to actually adhere to that mentality and then buy into it themselves and become very successful.
After these messages, we'll be right back.
February, the month of commitment.
It's over. Bradley On Demand has gone March mad. Dealers and managers, are you tired of long-term commitments and contracts? Well, this month, for the first time in the history of professional automotive sales, you can get access to the best training, tracking, testing, and certification platform with no commitment.
We've never done this before.
Not sure if we ever will again. So if you want to jump on and jump off Bradley On Demand at will, then text the 2 words no commitment to 267-551-6279 or email Tiana at dealersynergy.com with the words no commitment in the subject line. Do it now and you'll be able to one day sing this song.
I'm the millionaire car salesman. I'm a millionaire.
Which happens to be the name of this podcast.
Mike, absolutely. And for audience that is just tuning in, we're speaking with the dealer principal of the dealer group, Mike Schneider out of Montana. Started from the bottom, now he's here. Mike, I don't know if you know, but both my daughters are in the business. So my eldest daughter, she worked for 3 years at Patriot Buick GMC. And at 19 years old, she was averaging 20 cars a month, but outgrossing people selling 25, 30.
Yeah.
She has the number one website in the country called tgotyourkeys.com. She built her brand within Patriot Buick GMC. But then there's another woman. Shout out to Chrissy, the car fairy Burton. Chrissy Burton works at Huberler Chevrolet in Indiana. And this woman sold 74 cars in 1 month, all special finance deals, no assistance. And guess what? It's the end of the month. You know where she's going next, like before the month closes? Next week, she's going to Disney World because she can. She broke over, I think, like 50 or 60 cars this month. She's going to be in Disney World. And she doesn't even have to work the last couple of days of the month because she's literally a single mom of 3 kids, 1 infant, and she's crushing it. They're 2 females, my daughter and Chrissy Burton. What they do is exactly what you talked about. They don't take any fresh ups. What they do is they created their own brand and drive organic traffic and social media traffic between TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and they are their own brand. They're in control of their schedule. They're in control of their money. They're in control of their success. They're not waiting for the magic up bus. As a matter of fact, to our audience, on May 3rd, my daughter, Tiana Mick, is going to be hosting a major workshop at Digital Dealer in Tampa at 1:30 on May 3rd. Her and Chrissy Burton are actually going to break down exactly how they did this. So if anybody's out there and they're looking for a discount code, just hit me up and I'll give you a free discount code. I don't know what they're going to, take off. It's not my conference, but they gave me a bunch of discount codes to give to our audience members. If you guys want to go, holler at your boy. So Mike, I want to turn this in for the last couple of minutes that we have, about 15 minutes or so. I want to shotgun this, right? Because we've had a good dialogue here. I think I've learned a lot from you, and I'm very impressed with you, brother. And congratulations on your profound success. And man, I mean, I can't imagine how your team feels having a leader with your mindset, your values, and your integrity. Can you give us some best practices? So over the
Depends on the day you ask them probably how they feel about me.
Yeah, me too, brother. I got the same thing. It depends what day, but you've done something right to go from freaking buying, selling cars at 12 years old, buy here, pay here, all that stuff, to owning multiple franchise dealerships. You personify the millionaire car salesman legitimately. So what are some things that you're doing right now at your dealership on a management or owner level that's really successful? Do you have an acquisition program? Do you have some type of a strategy for something? Give us some nuggets. What are you doing out there in Montana that's helping you sell some cars right now in this economy?
One of the biggest things that we're doing, and we're a little, I don't know what the correct word would be, but kind of behind the times in central Montana. And so for us, it may not be applicable to some larger metro market area stuff, but one of the biggest things that is the human, technology has moved much faster than human beings. We've evolved at a certain speed. I read a lot of history and human history and the history of Rome and all that. And humans have been making human decisions for a long, long time. And the only thing that changes is the window dressing is what's surrounding us. And so understanding that, and you mentioned it earlier, people like to buy from people if they absolutely need a truck and you have the only truck in town, hey, maybe they'll buy, maybe a guy who doesn't like you will buy from you just because he needs that one unit. But in generally speaking, creating those bonds, creating those personal bonds it goes back to the word of mouth is the strongest form of advertising. So for us, we do a lot of community involvement at a dealer level, a ton of community involvement. And I've really, something that's maybe, been successful for us is I really try to create a mentality where you can go buy a car from anybody, but who you going to buy a car from. And one of the biggest things, I was an NFI trainer for a long time in some very, very large stores, lots of like 800 to 1,000 car a month stores in Southern California. So you do see a lot of transactions. And one of the questions that I'd anecdotally ask is if we sold a product in F&I that would guarantee the customer that if they, after the sale, could call the dealership and get somebody that cares. Like, how many times have we heard the story? Oh, I bought it from, I had a question on my paperwork, I had a question on my service contract, or I had a service issue and I called my salesman and I never got a call back. I couldn't get a hold of anybody. If we sold a product for $200, $300 in F&I that would guarantee that the customer had an after the sale experience that was a great after the sale experience, how many people would buy it? And everyone, it's amazing when you ask that question, most people would buy that product. So you go, well, the price of stuff isn't really that relevant, because you'll have guys that, you'll have people that will walk over $200. And then you go, well, if you spend $200 to go somewhere that gives a shit, that is obviously a value. But I don't think we emphasize that value enough. It's not necessarily, you can go buy a Ford Edge anywhere. You can buy this, that. And most of the cars are pretty replaceable in the internet age. It's the market's relatively ubiquitous. I mean, like I say, it's homogenized. Car Gurus, everything's on Car Gurus, all that stuff for used cars. So the separating factor isn't the car, and it's really not even the price for the most part, because the reality matters is that they can get on their phone and find a cheaper one anywhere. So the separating factor is who they're buying from, a personal level, from the salesperson standpoint. Who am I buying from? Is this person a good person? Or do they actually care? Are they listening to me? Are they listening to my needs? Are they actually trying to solve the problems I came in with as a consumer? And then from a dealership level, is what type of store am I buying from? Is this a store that doesn't care after the sale, or do they care? Is it somewhere we can pick up the phone? And if we need to get a hold of someone that actually cares,
let me jump in. Let me jump in, because just as the trainer, I know you were a trainer before, and I respect that, but I'm hearing you and I'm translating, but I just got the audience. I want to just clarify and translate what I'm hearing, Mike say, and I agree 1000%, is that, again, if somebody is willing to pay theoretically $200 or $300 for somebody to give a shit, that actually is free if you have that mindset. So I'd say, Mike, we have to train our sales staff, and from the reception to the BDC to management, that the customer is incredibly important. And even if we're busy or if the sale's done, we have to stop, make time for them to feel heard and to be solved. There's that Badger commercial. You remember the Badger commercials back?
I love those Badger commercials.
Oh my God. Do you remember when the guy comes in for service and he goes, I'm on my popcorn break. You see the suit? I sell cars. I don't fix them. That's what you're talking about. You're talking about, even if it's not your area, like from parts or sales or not sales, to stop and care. You have to train that. You have to lead by example. And sometimes managers don't lead by example, because if I'm at the desk and I'm saying the customers are first, but I'm motherfucking them when they walk out of there, that guy's an asshole, this guy's a liar, then that shit translates downhill. If you really want to have that persona, that persona that you care about people and you're for the people, you have to live that life. You can't call people bogues, rats, mooches, all these other negative connotations. You've got to walk the walk, not just talk the talk. That's the first thing. The other thing that you said, and I want you to elaborate, because this is where it gets confusing, because everybody says the same shit, but there's no details. I believe you, and I agree, working in the community, but can you give some legitimate, specific examples of what you do to serve the community, what activities, what charities you do, just so people understand, oh my God, I didn't think of that. Oh, that's great. Oh, I could do that too.
Well, one of the things we're really fortunate in a small community where we have a pretty direct, like 1-to-1 dollar ratio. What we donate gets distributed to where we want it to go, which is really, really nice. But one of the things that we did this last year was $100 a car. Every car we sold, $100 a car gets set aside to a community fund. At the end of the year, this last year, we donated enough money to rebuild a bridge in our town, a walking bridge in our town, and keep the city pool open this summer. It gets tremendous amount of press. Obviously donating to the local high school. I'm my controller would probably tell you I say yes to just about everything. But no, we from an ownership standpoint, I actively, this is where my, I kind of, I don't necessarily, I'm on the floor. Sometimes I still like taking up to selling cars, honestly, but I don't get the chance to do that as much as I used to. But from an ownership standpoint, I'm constantly looking at how we can engage with the community. And that's one of the things, like looking at, things in town that are needed, and then being proactive about it. I don't wait for somebody to come and talk to me. Like I just had this meeting with the mayor. There was something in the paper I saw where they were falling short on something. And I reached out to some other local businesses, and we were able to raise the funds they've been working on this problem for months. By 10:30 this morning, I had the problem solved for them. I just went down to the mayor and said, hey, I'll have to check for you at the end of the week. We'll get it handled. And that's that's the walking the walk thing, is actively looking at how you can present your brand and how you build it. And I'm still a big believer in that personal brand thing. And going back to one of the things I said is, who you're buying from. One of the strongest lines I used or heard along the way, but on the sales floor, when you're a salesman, you control the buying experience for the customer. And one of the things I always was a big believer in is get people to do the process with you, not at them. And the way you do that is you get small commitments. You build small partnerships. We all like to be part of a winning team. If you can figure out a way to be a team with the customer, they're willing to go through a lot more stuff with you. If you're selling at them, like say it's an adversarial thing. If you can partner up with them, and you do that by making blanket statements. Hey, is it okay if we make this an awesome buying experience? That no customer is going to say, no, I want to get drugged through the mud today. And then you actually go and live up to that. And the way I'm going to do that, hey, and then you follow up. The way I'm going to do that, I'm going to ask you some questions right now. You set the expectations properly. My day-to-day, folks, I appreciate you coming. My job today is make sure you have an awesome buying experience. The way I'm going to do that is I'm going to ask you some questions, find out what you need. We're going to look at some cars. We're going to solve those problems for you. We're going to go drive those cars, make sure they make sense in your life. And then at the end of the day, if we've done a good job on those, I'm going to go to bat for you and make sure that we actually make the best deal we possibly can that fits in your budget. One of the strongest things on the backside is in F&I is when you're presenting product and stuff like that. But again, it goes back to that dealership culture. I'm not here to sell you a bunch of product. This is not stuff you need. This is all stuff. My job today is make sure you have an awesome ownership experience, because at the end of the day, I want to earn your business again. We want you to come back and buy another car from us. And we know that if you hated your buying experience and you hated your ownership experience, we probably aren't going to get that opportunity. None of our, up to this point, if you had a great buying experience, that's great. My job in F&I is to put you on a path to come back and buy your next car from us. The only way I can do that is these are the tools that our dealership, these are the tools I have. These are products here. When customers take advantage of these, it kind of manages that buying experience, so they don't have any out of the blue things that are going to cost them money. They're not going to have anything to detract from that buying experience. And it takes that product and it sets it aside. So we're not selling their products. All we're now trying to do is no different than a financial manager is I'm trying to make the next 3, 5, 7 years or however long you're going to own this car awesome. Because I know if I can make those years awesome, I get an opportunity the next time. And is that a fair statement? Most people will agree with that. And like I say, if you actually, I feel like that's one of the things in sales we've gone away from is it's okay to say, hey, I want to make sure and sell you a car today. I don't expect you to give me my business. I have to work for your business, but here's how I'm going to work for your business. If I do that, is it okay if I earn your business? Most people are agreeing with that. And on the same side as if you're building a business from a dealership perspective, if we make sure they have an awesome ownership experience, I don't expect you to come back and buy your next car from me. But if I do a great job and we're and you're buying a car and you see that when you buy a car from us, we're in the community, we're doing those things, I would like to earn your business the next time because I feel like I've lived up to my end of the bargain. And most people, like I said, most consumers have a pretty good understanding of that kind of that give and take relationship. We're, out here, we're a lot of farmers, but I've always had that mentality as a salesperson is that you're a farmer, not a miner. A miner comes in and just strip mines everything and there's no resources left. Farmers, we're setting up for the next time around. And that's from a salesperson's perspective, you got to be a farmer. You have to be doing a great job, but then you got to be planting the seeds for the next harvest. And the only way you do that is by making sure that those people had a good buying experience and an awesome ownership experience. And to your point, that there's no fakery in that. There's no guy coming in and, I'm on a popcorn break, or if a customer you sold a car to calls and you never call them back. Don't be upset when that customer doesn't show up and buy your next car from you. Or if you do a follow-up call 2.5 years after they buy a car and they go, oh, we just bought an Explorer. Don't be, oh man, those people, they screwed me. You never talk to them. You don't deserve that deal. If you're talking to them every 6 weeks, or if you're doing a 30-day, 90-day follow-up and they go by, hey, then you go, hey, I feel like I did everything I could have done. They should have bought from me. What are you going to do? But the reality of the matter is, if you invest in your customer base at that level, those situations become pretty mitigated. You're going to have the outliers, but you start capturing those. You start capturing a lot of those customers, and it's one of those things. It's cumulative over time. The more you do it, the more you execute, the more consistent you are with it, the more you get those results, and the better those results get. And like I said, over time, it just continues to build, and eventually you have a very strong customer base.
Man, listen, I'm loving this conversation. I got a couple more questions for you. All right. What would you say your biggest, like the world changed with this pandemic, and now I don't know what it's called now, the post-pandemic apocalypse, whatever you want to classify it as, but the inventory is still, limited. It's getting better. I think the market's softening. There's a lot of stuff going on, but what would you say your biggest challenges are today? Is it price? Is it availability? Is it the lack of leads? Is it too many leads? Is it people? What would you say your particular organization, and first you, and then just your dealer friends, your dealer, that you talk to, what would you say the biggest challenges are for dealers on a macro level, and then for salespeople on a micro level? What are the challenges right now?
Well, I mean, the inventory thing is a challenge, but it's a challenge that no one can solve right now. I mean, and so it's one of those things it's just like being a ship's captain in a massive storm. I mean, you can complain about the ocean, but you're not going to change it. And so at some point you just kind of go, okay, I mean, we're just going to ride it out. And so, I mean, that's probably, I think if you ask most dealers, inventory, used car pricing, all that stuff, but that's what we signed up for as car dealers. I mean, shit, we're in the car business, buying and selling cars. I mean, it's a live market. So, I mean, what are you going to do? One of the, probably as like a dealer, for me, human resource is one of the biggest challenges that most of me and my dealer friends have outside of like just the basic inventory thing. It's, and I think that our industry, and this is one of the reasons I want to do this podcast, is because I'm a big believer. Here's the thing is, I challenge anyone else to think of an industry where you can start at the bottom. I mean, I've met more than one person who started as a salesperson, or like even lower than that, like a car prep, and is a manager of a store, or owns a dealership, or is a dealer, or a partner in a dealer, a franchise auto group or something like that. It's the American dream. And I think we've really mismanaged that as an industry, is selling that to get talented people to the business, where we get those people that are willing to invest in themselves, treat it like a sport, and want to make that pro athlete money, but understand it's going to take some level of pro athlete stick-to-itiveness and hard work and dedication and practice. I think that's one of the, like I say, I think that human resource mismanagement is one of those things that, we've as an industry kind of got to get back to. And that's why I love your Facebook and your podcast and stuff, because it's kind of selling that idea again. That's what we need to get back to. This is the only industry in America. I challenge anybody. There's no fucking guy running a hospital that started out in the commissary. You know what I mean? No. Like, there's no technology guy that there's nobody running. There's no CEOs out there other than the car business that come from you don't have any educational requirements. You just have to have hustle. And that's the damn American dream. I mean, if you enter it, it doesn't matter, like, say, black, white, women, man, Zim, Zay, I don't care what the hell it is. You get in, you hustle it, and you make it to the point of the gal that is selling 75 cars. You get to the golden rule. The more gold you make, the more rules you can make for yourself. And like my top salesperson is a female, and she's crushing it. It's one of those things. There's no prerequisite on who you are. It's hustle, and you can hustle to the top. And I truly believe it's the only business, it's the only industry left in the world, maybe certainly reduced down to, I would be challenged to find if there's any others out there that you can make that transition from, where you start at the bottom and work all the way to the top. And I think that's one of those things. The more we can sell that mindset and actually demonstrate that it's not some pie in the sky thing. It's a real, like, linear path that you can follow, and it's a dream that can be achieved in a person's lifetime. I just turned 40 years old. I mean, I'm a relatively young guy, and
I'm older than you.
Yeah, I'm a dealer principal. So, like I say, it's not like I'm 110 and finally got my swing at the bat. And it's just the more we sell that dream, I think the higher talent we'll get, the higher levels of talent that we recruited to the industry. And I think that would benefit, obviously those people will find opportunities that they may not have thought possible before, where those talented individuals may have been capped in certain other industries where they thought that there was like much more potential. And then from a dealer's perspective, obviously getting those more talented individuals obviously increases our ability to grow and increase the bottom line and sell more cars, which is what the whole point of the game. So That would be, to me, probably the human resource capital is probably the number one challenge. And when I say not just flooding the floor with a bunch of just people that were and nothing against I was looking for a car for my ex, and we walked in we were looking at cars, and I was just kind of walking on lots, and she used to hate it when I go. I never tell people I'm in the car business. I like looking at cars, and I like hearing what salesmen say, and then I'm like biting my tongue. Sometimes I'll pull them aside and go, hey, this is where you can improve here and do this and say something. I try not to. But this one guy's like, I go, how long have you been selling cars? 6 weeks. If this don't work, so I'm going back to Verizon. To me, that's like the epitome of just leave now. You know what I mean? The less we can, the more we can recruit the kind of the high level people, the less we'll get the people that are going back to Verizon in 6 weeks. I think that that will benefit the industry a great deal. And I think that the way we do that is by selling that dream and actually, and like say, giving people the ability to actually hit those numbers. And from a dealer perspective, if there's any dealers, that comes from pay plans. If we keep chopping pay plans, that's one of the things I'm a big believer. If you are a gunner, you should make big money. And that's why I've been able to recruit pretty decent salespeople with that mentality, and develop some pretty decent salespeople with that mentality. Like I say, I truly believe that a good salesperson should be making, if you put the pro athlete effort in, you should be making damn near pro athlete money, maybe rookie minimum pro athlete money, but still good money. There's no Kobe contracts on this.
Well, wait a minute. Let me jump in right there. I want to say a couple of things. A lot of people don't realize, but Dealer Synergy for 19 years now, we've been doing recruiting and staffing. We're certified by Franklin Covey and Top Grading. Mike, I've recruited, my company that I own recruited 37,000 automotive professionals and managers over the last 19 years. 37,000 people we've hired. And one thing that one of my competitors says that I love, I'm hijacking it shit. He said, did we hire them dead or kill them after we got them? And it's a beautiful saying. Our industry, most of the time, they recruit out of desperation without strategy, or they outsource it to some random ass recruiting company that doesn't know what they're doing, that cookie cuts and pastes these templates for resumes. So you get what you get. Or by the grace of God or by dumb luck, you get somebody that's either good or has the possibility good, but you don't have an onboarding process. You don't have a training process, personal development, professional development, team building process, and then you lose that person. I can't tell you how many dealers right now in this HR shortage have hired people and then lost them because they didn't have the proper. The number one reason why people quit? Because they're not successful. Yeah. Because again, there's a lot of reasons why people stay at their jobs. They're like, you know what, I want to leave, but shit, I'm making so much money. You know what I mean? That's not the problem we have. We have the opposite problem. Most people, unfortunately, are not successful because they're either not recruited properly or they're not onboarded and trained properly. 100%. And now, just to bring something to your attention, I'm going to call some names. My guy, Cody Carter. Cody Carter works at Tustin Toyota. It's verified in Orange County, California. He sold in December 121.5 units on the showroom floor. He made over $5 million gross for the dealership. He made $1.1 million in personal income.
There you go.
Ali Retta, he works at Les Stanford Chevy Cadillac. He broke the Guinness Book of World Records. 1,582 units in 1 year, 2017. He sold 202 units in 1 month, December 2018. And he sold 35 cars on January 3rd, 2020. This guy is a beast. He's got 2 assistants. He's actually got an assistant and a porter. But my point is he makes about $1.5 million a year. Then you've got Frank Crinity out of Springfield, Pennsylvania, Piazza Honda, sells about 100 cars a month, makes close to $1 million. So that's not normal. They're actually not good.
Let me ask you a quick question. How tall and strong are those guys? I'll answer it. It doesn't fucking matter. What's the difference between them and everybody else? I go back to it. It's the words we use and how we use them.
Yes.
It's how we're marketing ourselves. That's the thing I love about this business is you mentioned 3 names. I don't know what any of those guys look like. It doesn't matter at all because anybody that's listening to this can use this. If they take those guys' strategies, now obviously there's going to be some flex in that because of your local market and stuff, but the best in the world to the worst, the person who's brand new, it's how much you're willing to invest in yourself. Obviously the dealer comes in, but even if you're at a crap dealer that doesn't want to train and you want to get good, there's a pathway to make that type of money. So I'll let you go. I didn't even cut you off.
I love it because what you said in the beginning that you're tall, you can't tell because I'm in a Zoom frame, but I'm only 5'5", just so you know. And I know I look taller on video, but I'm only 5'5". But here's what's funny, though. I'm 46 years old. And what I'm about to tell you is going to sound crazy, but you heard of Vice TV. Vice TV is a major TV network. They did an hour episode. So I'm a star of a Vice TV show. You know what I mean?
Oh,
yeah, I'll tell you the name of it in a second. And it's a true crime, true seriousness of what happened. But from the automotive industry, not my previous life, I've generated over $50 million in personal income. Me and my wife, we own 11 companies right now, and it's because of the automotive industry. Yeah. My daughter, Kalina, works at RK Kia in Vineland, New Jersey on the floor. My nephew works at Patriot Buick GMC. My older daughter is now with Dealer Synergy after spending 3 years on the floor. And my entire company is, comprised of very close friends and family. Over the last 19 years, we built this little empire. The show, which a lot of people know already, is called I Was a Teenage Felon. I grew up in Queens and Brooklyn, and I got into a lot of trouble when I was a kid. I lost 6 years of my life by the time I was 22 years old, brother. So when I got into the car industry, I was 22 years old, and I changed my entire life around. I went from being completely broke, ex-gang member, ex-convict, and I was negative because I was at Rider University. When I went to the feds for 3 years, and I had 3 years in juvenile. And so not only was I have all those negative stuff, but I was over $25,000 in debt. So I dug myself out of all that shit and became a multimillionaire, a best-selling author of the book Googleopoly, star of a major Vice TV show that aired in front of 8 million people. And I had a nationally syndicated radio show. And I'm not trying to impress anybody. My point being is your point. Where the hell in the world do you have an industry where an ex-convict street kid that grew up in the most adverse, crazy conditions in Brooklyn and Queens, New York, is able to resurrect himself from the fucking dirt, below the dirt, to being what I'm being today? It's because of the automotive industry. We have opportunity to do more, be more, and achieve more. There's so many opportunities that this industry has. And I want to close on this, and then I'm going to give you the last word. I want to just say this. If you think about it, name one athlete, just one athlete that's a billionaire, let me finish, from their sports activities, non-endorsements, non-products. Name one musician that's a billionaire from their, I'm not talking about like, Rihanna or Kanye with their fucking fashion. I'm talking, there's not, there's multiple billionaires. There's dealer principal billionaires. There's OEM billionaires, and there's vendor billionaires in our industry. Forget about Batman and Michael Jordan, respectfully. My idols are freaking Penske. You know what I mean? People like that, people in this industry that, because I don't have any, I have no jump shot. I'm nowhere in hell going to be Michael Jordan. I can't rap. I ain't going to be Jay-Z, but you know what? I can become a freaking billionaire because of my automotive skills, my automotive background. All right. I'm going to give you the last word. How do you want to close out? Let's say something brilliant that people remember you by, bro.
Well, now you're putting the pressure on me. I don't have everything brilliant was up front there. No, I just, to your point, one of the guys that was probably, you're obviously have an inspirational story, but I got an opportunity to work with and sit in some meetings with a guy named Bert Bachman, who's the head of Galpin, and probably a guy started as a salesperson in the 60s and worked his way up to one of the biggest dealer principals of all time. And
from Galpin Ford?
Yeah, Bert.
Oh, wow.
And but to your point of it's one of those things that just doesn't exist in any other world, where you can get a guy, like I say, and grow to that level. And it's just like I say, this is the only industry that offers that for people. And I think that if the more we can sell that, and the more we can talk about that with people, the more successful, I think the more successful people will draw to this industry, as well as the more the people that are in the industry will be inspired to kind of reach for that brass ring, because it does exist. And to your point, I never actually thought about that. There's a lot of billionaires in this industry.
Not a lot.
Listen, not a lot.
Mike, what you need to do if you're not doing this, though, with your athlete mind, why aren't you doing dealers? Why aren't you guys doing job fairs? Why aren't you going to vocational schools, high schools, colleges, doing job fairs? Why are you not using the local media and do job fairs at the dealership? People don't realize it's not just the old school selling cars on the floor. No, you have internet sales, business development, CRM, technology, social media, video. You have, so many different career paths besides, just the grease monkey mechanical stuff. But if people don't know about this, how are they going to magically know? We got to go to the streets. We got to go to the colleges. We got to go to the masses and say, look, You could make so much money and have fun in automotive. But if they don't know about it, they're going to go to where everybody else is going, college and becoming in debt and all this other stuff.
Don't even get me on the college debt thing. But that's another podcast for another time.
Yeah.
I actually go talk at the high school every year and do like a one day where I talk to all the seniors about credit, because they're all starting to sign for student loans. And there's time for college and there's time not for college, but debt, saddling yourself with debt at such a young age is a scary thing. That's what you have to say. No, we got to go to the streets. But one of the things that I think that we're missing out on is, and you mentioned it just really briefly there, is the social media side of things. Some of the most we're recruiting, some of the most successful people. If you can have a strong social media presence, you can sell a lot of cars off that. Why aren't we getting these young people? Why aren't we going after some of these younger TikTokers? And
yes,
it's not I would be lying if I said I have a real depth of knowledge of TikTok and shit. I mean, I understand it, but I don't like, I'm not dancing on there. So, but why aren't we going after these people? Because it's such an effective means of selling. And going after these high energy young people that are maybe looking at some of these other industry things, if they could take and apply those basic things, and I heard this, and I shouldn't, you don't call anybody a slug, but one of the things I heard, and I've always kind of hired by this, is I'll take energy over skill set any day. A slug's a slug. Like, I can direct energy. You can have the most highly accredited slug on earth, and you go, hey, do that. It's still going to be a goddamn slug. If you take someone with energy, I'll take, my top salesperson, when she came on, she was an industrial painter. She never sold a car in her life, but she had great energy and she could talk to people and she was engaging. And why aren't we going after those people they may not have like the skill set that they're coming into the store with, but they have the correct energy, they have the correct mentality, and they have that winner mindset. Let's start recruiting those people. And like I said, from this younger generation, why aren't we going after some of these these more technologically savvy folks to start attacking the internet at a level that we know is successful? Your daughter sounds like she's incredibly successful at it. That, I think, is something that we're missing out on right now a lot.
100%.
And we need to start selling that and that comes from a rebranding of the industry. And it starts with guys like you and a much smaller level, people like me talking about it. But dealers as a whole, if we can get out there and start changing that perception of the industry, where it's not an old man's game, it's not this, it's not that, this is for anybody who's looking to get ahead in life, and it's for anybody who's, if you're a hustler, it doesn't matter what type of hustler you are, you can come to this business and you can make more money and you can do it legit. Like you said, you come from a background with some crime stuff. It's legal, it's fun, it's talking to people, and it's freaking the last damn Western gunfight you're ever going to have, because everything else has been so tamped down by everything. I invested my mind, and I'm going to go out there and put my wares on the street. And if you kind of like that, when I hire people, I always kind of try and talk them out of the job first, because I tell people is selling cars isn't for everyone, but for the people it's the only job that'll ever exist for them, because it puts so many elements of learning and human behavioral knowledge, living on your own wherewithal, as far as I invest in myself, I make more, unlimited earning potential, all those different things, tons of freedom as far as most stores. If you're 20, 25 car a month person, no one's going to care if you want to kick a weekend off at the end of the month. You know what I mean? It gives you a latitude in which no other business gives you. And we don't talk about that enough. And it's one of those things I think that we miss out on that a little bit, as far as what this industry can offer people and what this business can look like for people that are willing to, like I say, if that resonates with you, if you like understanding how the humans make decisions, if you like talking to people, if you like engaging and putting it on the street and living and dying by your own skill set, there's no other job out there like it. There's no other industry like it. And like I say, most people want to work with a net. We're not looking for most people. We're looking for the people that love living without a net. And those are the people that are extremely successful. And again, this is the pathway for those people, whereas a lot of other industries have closed down for those people to really make it to the top or make the big money. This is the last industry. This is the last avenue left for that mentality to go out and make the big money. And there's, we're in a country of 350 million people. There's enough of those people still left that all these dealerships could go out and have a tremendous sales staff. But how do we rebrand? How do we start attracting those people again? And how do we start attracting that younger generation? I think, like I say, you see some of these kids on TikTok, and kids, but I'm like turned 40 like 3 weeks ago, and all of a sudden I'm saying kids. I'm wearing a goddamn sweater like an old man. But you see these younger people, and they're making huge. They're trying to do influencer stuff. There's a million failed influencers out there. I look at some of those people and go, man, if you took that and just worked at a car store and took that exact same skill set and worked at a car store, you wouldn't be making $1,200 in your parents' basement doing an influencer thing. You'd be making $12,000 a month, driving a brand new car, doing whatever the hell you want to do. If you just took and applied that basic hustle mentality to a business that already has avenues and already has wealth involved with it versus just trying to do it all on your own. So anyway, I guess that'd be
I love it. Listen, I want to thank you so much for your time, your experience, and I think your story is very inspirational. Again, I appreciate it. So just stand by.
So there you have it, the Millionaire Car Salesman Podcast. This podcast comes to you every week from the city of brotherly love, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. If you have a question about the show or would like the chance to become a guest, feel free to contact us directly at 856-546-2440 or email us at millionairecarsalesman@gmail.com. This program is a presentation of Synergy Records, produced by Tiana Mick and L.A. Williams. Production and engineering by L.A. Williams. The Millionaire Car Salesman Podcast is hosted every week by L.A. Williams and the Millionaire Car Salesman himself, Sean V. Bradley. The Millionaire Car Salesman Podcast can be found everywhere, so please don't forget to review, subscribe to, and share the show. Thanks for listening to the Millionaire Car Salesman Podcast, and remember, where I'm from, money provides options. If you enjoyed this podcast, then make sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and leave us a review. Let some other folks know about it. Oh, and don't forget to join the Millionaire Car Salesman group on Facebook. We'll see you there.